in Australia, a new year of cycling begins as the sport's elite riders assemble once again. Among them, the champion here a year ago, who now aims for a repeat ride in his home nation. But challengers have their own ideas, as top sprinters race for victory at full speed. And the speed is cracking the front of the peloton. He is now putting himself into a perfect position to win this. While a Tour de France champion gets an early test of endurance on a brand new series of climbs. The first challenge ahead is a 32-mile criteria. The Santos Tour Down Under is next. Hello everyone and welcome to the Epic Cycle Series presented by Michelob Ultra. I'm Phil Liggett and joined as always by Paul Sherwin. The city of Adelaide in South Australia and the People's Choice Criterium, a race of 51 kilometres, will open a week of racing here in Adelaide itself.
30 degrees Celsius, but it will get a little bit chillier as the sun starts to go down over the horizon later on in the afternoon. But for these riders, 30 laps of a 1.7 kilometre course just outside of the Central Business District.
I think this is to where the stages are much harder than in the past. So maybe it's good for me if I'm good, but you know, we have to see if I will be ready with the jet lag, with the temperature, you know, with the heat and so.
It's not a sprinter race anymore. That was maybe 5-6 years ago, but I believe now you have to be all around or even maybe a climber to win here.
It's always a good warm-up, but maybe it's also one of the hardest races to win the criterium. So everybody is pretty motivated for that.
World champion Philippe Gilbert is the man who doesn't think it'll be a sprint, and of course Andre Greipel does. Well, let's have a look at the field and the map they face now on the People's Choice Criterium. 51 kilometres. It runs around at the Rymel Park circuit here. It's a circuit well known.
Very fast circuit, a few corners, most of them pretty much sweeping bends, who usually dominated the early part by a breakaway, but when they charge back into Rundle Road, it's normally a sprint.
30 laps of the circuit and it's 1.7 kilometres a lap. And the crowd already in excess of 100,000. Let's go to the start.
Well, they are away, and I tell you what interesting thing about this race here, the People's Choice Classic and the Santos Tour Down Under, although it's part of the World Tour, they've always allowed a young Australian team in as a development squad, and it's Uni SA, the squad, all Australian riders, and they are always very aggressive, Phil. They're quite keen to take a few scalps of some of the famous names of the sport of professional cycling. I wouldn't be surprised to see that team being one of the first to go onto the attack.
And neither would I, because this is the changing times, the new guard coming through. One of the riders on that Uni SA team is Calvin Watson, who on his 20th birthday just a week ago won one of Australia's oldest races. 60 years old, the Jayco Herald Sun Tour.
Well, I think I'm wrong on this occasion, because I think one of the first riders to go onto the attack is one of the oldest riders in the field at 41 years of age. It's Jens Voigt from Germany.
Always lets his legs do the talking. Voigt on the attack for Team Radio Shack. He's got somebody with him down there, but it looks like he might have a Uni SA rider with him, and I think he has. I think it's Zach Dempster who's gone with him there in that white jersey. Yes, it is. So the Uni SA team have made their move straight away with Jens Voigt.
Well, he really is the crowd favourite, Jens Voigt, and amazingly, he feels very much at home in Australia. The first professional team he actually participated in was a combination of a Czech squad and the Australian Institute for Sport, and that was his first professional team a long, long time ago. Back in 1994 was when Jens Voigt first turned professional.
He got the biggest cheer yesterday in the streets of Adelaide when we had the team presentation in Victoria Square, just outside of the team hotel in downtown Adelaide itself, and he got the loudest cheer of all.
Well, This is the Uni SA team we're telling you about, Phil. As you mentioned, this is Zach Dempster. He looked to get into this breakaway. I think the breakaway was actually started by Jens Voigt, and the crowd know this man for all the heroic moves he's made in races like the Tour de France. And here he will show off to the crowd. And look at that crowd. There's not a free house, and not a free seat in the house.
Now there's 4 sprints out on the route. They're just for prizes and points. They come at the end of laps 5, 10, 15 and 20. The race is 30 laps in all. Tuesday at 3:30 Eastern, the Epic Cycle Series presented by Michelob Ultra continues with stage 1 of the Tour Down Under. The riders begin their race as they go into the Adelaide Hills. That's Tuesday at 3:30 Eastern Time on the NBC Sports Network. Well, look at this, Zach Dempster taking it out, no resistance at all from Jens Voigt. So first blood to the Australian national team on the first prize available.
Well, I don't think Jens Voigt was going to respond to that at all. Jens is just trying to consolidate this advantage. He knows that the race will start to speed up a little later on, and he wants to try and build a buffer over the main peloton if he can. But if the breakaway is to succeed on a circuit like this, before they come down to the last 10 laps of the race, they have to have an advantage of at least, I would say, a 1-minute margin.
Interestingly, Zach Dempster, he comes from Bendigo, which is a town in Victoria, and he turned up for the national championships. He rode a pretty good national championships. He didn't medal in it, but he turned down the chance to ride in the Jayco Sun Tour, which is a 4-day race this year with a prologue time trial. That's what he did it. That's how he did it. They wanted to keep him fresh for this week, and it looks as though it's paying off. Now, a problem here, because this is the Blanco team rider Jack Bobridge, who's also got a problem. So the 2 young Top Gun Aussie riders have both had flat tyres today. Luke Durbridge was the other one on the opening lap. Now, Zach Dempster won the Skoda sprint. I wouldn't think he will try to attack Jens Voigt now as we come up to the Europcar sprint 5 laps late. Oh, well, he is. Well, that's not very gentlemanly, because these boys are sharing the effort, but Zach has decided he wants to.
Well, I don't think Jens was too bothered about that either, but Uni SA want to put some money into their back pockets. At these sprint points out on the open road, there's finance available for these riders. They're young riders. 3 riders in that squad, Phil, just 20 years of age. It really is a team for the future.
It is, and they're coached by Dave Saunders, who was the Victoria Coach of the Year last year, and well deserved for Dave. He really gets the best out of his young team, and his attitude is, you're riding a race against the biggest names in the world. I want to see you out the front. And Dempster has set the trend straight from the gun today. Looks as though we've still got Lotto Belisol working hard at the front just now.
Yeah, but Phil, they are starting to pull this back very rapidly. As we have a quick look here at how Dempster just came by Jens Voigt there. Jens didn't even attempt to accelerate. He let the younger rider take the glory on this occasion, because he's thinking about working together, keeping this breakaway successful for as long as possible.
And no fist waving from Jens, so he's quite happy with the tactic of Zach, who's now won both the sprints so far. There are 2 more to come.
Yeah, but if you look at the length of that main field, I had a quick an informal time check there, Phil. From the 50-second margin it's now down to about 35 seconds. They're taking this breakaway very seriously indeed.
Now, Philippe Gilbert may be his first visit to the Tour Down Under as a world champion, but he's ridden here 3 times before, Paul, and he's always won something. King of the Mountains title in his early days, 2004, best young rider, 4th overall. He usually does win something.
And if my memory serves me correct, he went a very windy stage into Victor Harbour a couple of years ago as well. At the moment, though, they're all thinking about this. They're thinking about Jens Voigt, and they're thinking about Zach Dempster. They had an advantage of almost 1 minute over the main field. My guesstimate at the moment, Phil, is around about 20.
Yes, they've got them, but look how hard they are working at the front. These boys are not surrendering. They're making this peloton work their way up to those 2 riders, and they're not giving up at all. This is an incredible show of defiance by Voigt and Dempster. We are now on lap 18. Will they survive at least to take all of the prizes before the finish? Because at the end of lap 20, that's where the next sprint is. Welcome back to the 2013 the Santos Tour Down Under here on the NBC Sports Network. There's the bell out on the last sprint lap. They might survive to take all the prizes before the finish.
1.7 kilometers, or just outside of one old-fashioned mile, and they've still got around about 15 seconds. I don't think they will want to pull these riders back, because these teams of the sprinters are much more concerned about keeping themselves all together for the last 5 laps, because that's when they'll be trying to set up the position they want their sprinter to be in. It's a great crowd turned out here this evening in the eastern side of Adelaide.
It is a marvellous crowd, and they're enjoying the restaurants along the front of the terraces there, and the pubs, of course, as these two riders now. A little bit slow reaction from Zach there. He'd have to grab the back wheel of Jens, who's turned up the turbo again. Where does this man get his strength from, approaching 42 years of age? But he doesn't mind at all.
Well, he says as long as he can remain competitive, as long as he can get into a breakaway, he will continue to race in the sport of professional cycling at 41 years of age. What an example he sets to the youngsters.
Yes, like I've lost count, but I think he's got a family of 5 children. I keep sometimes thinking it's 6, but I think it's just 5, isn't it?
Well, I've got 5 written down there in my book, and he spends a lot of time. If you are a Twitter adept, he actually puts out some very interesting Twitter responses out during the winter. When he looks after the kids, he takes them riding, he takes them to soccer. He gets as much father time in during the winter months as he possibly can, because for the rest of the year he's out on the road.
Still the same 2 teams. Lotto Belisol leading around the corner on this occasion, led by Olivier Kaysen. And then comes the white jerseys of Argus Shimano. Another team to ride the Tour de France. Marcel Kittel is their sprinter. As we go back up to the leads, they've never faltered. Both of them have given their fair share of pacemaking here. They're doing long stints, but they're in the background now. The pack is hovering. They're not going to trap them before the sprint, I don't think. Surely they wouldn't be that cruel, but is Zach Dempster going to let Jens Voigt take out number 4 of 4? And I think he might be.
Well, waiting for your prediction.
Well, I don't know. Right. Oh, well, look at this. He's gone again.
Well, I think that's pretty mean of Dempster, but Jens Voigt won't be too upset about that. He'd just be happy to have been in the breakaway this afternoon. A crowd pleased as Zach Dempster gets himself 4 for 4 here this afternoon, but the gap now is just down to a mere 12 seconds. Very shortly, they'll have the company of their colleagues in the main peloton.
Well, let's have a look again. I thought at the moment he decided to resist, but no, the temptation of the money at the finishing line pulled it out. No admonishment from Jens Voigt, who says, hey, what about me? I'm helping you. So they're happy enough to just let it go this way, I think.
He may well chase him to the bar tonight and say, look, you've taken all that money home this afternoon. Can you buy me a pint, mate?
Yeah. The catch is coming. We're out onto lap 21. We're 9 laps from the finish. They refuse to give up. Zach looks over his shoulder, little grimace on his face, and he thinks, oh, they're here.
Look at Lotto Belisol. They're in the second row very much there, if you like. They're well organized, they're well knit together all around their man Andre Greipel. He will be the last man in that line of riders there, and he'll be waiting for the moment to tell his team to go full gas and stretch it out. But Team Sky, as they've done, Phil, over the last 3 years, they've got themselves organized in the last few laps of this race.
And it's the man that used to lead out Mark Cavendish when he was on this team, Bernhard Eisel, the Austrian, on the front now, looking ever so relaxed. And the rider tagging just behind him is Matthew Hayman, the former Commonwealth champion, and he's Australian. A lot of teams have moved into this now. You could take this race back over the last 3 years. It's looking very familiar. The men in black from Sky and the riders from the Lotto Belisol team are beginning to mix it together.
The question is, who has got the biggest firepower? Now, as another team, Argus Shimano in the white jerseys, looking over their shoulders. Where's Marcel Kittel? They're all piling themselves up to the front right now to get their sprinters into an ideal position. We're probably approaching 60 kilometers an hour. You notice heads are turning around. Where's my sprint? Have I got the right man on my back wheel? Bernie Eisel, though, he's the calming factor for Team Sky. Look at him looking around. Who's on my wheel? Are we in a good position? The third place rider is Matty Hayman.
And the one he's looking for, bottom screen, is the red jersey of the Norwegian champion, Eddie Boysenhagen. He's the rider he wants to bring to the line. But the white jersey on the right there was Ian Stannard, the British champion, who's also slotted into a very, very serious sprinting position. And watch out for another British rider on the Amiga Pharma Quick-Step team, Andrew Fenn. He's also moved up.
Yes, but Argos Shimano, they've got so much confidence in their new sprinter. Only 24 years of age, Marcel Kittel. The back end of the main field, they're pretty much out of it here this afternoon. Control at the front end of the peloton is the men in white, Argos Shimano, but still waiting in the wings. Lotto Belisol over on the right-hand side. Getting into their slipstream, the riders in the black and blue jerseys, Team Sky, they're still waiting for the moment to turn on full gas.
You'll have noted riders falling away. Their job of setting the high pace done. They can't go any faster or hold it any longer. They're out of the way now, trying to progress their sprinters towards the front. We're coming up to 2 laps to go from the finish.
Tense times here. Simon Gerrans at the front for Orica Green Edge now. Can he do something to make sure that Matti Gossi's number 1, 2, 3, 4 in the line there, but just been squeezed out? You saw the risks he took going around that corner. He's 4th in the line of Orica Green Edge riders. He's bumping and barging a little bit with the riders from Argos Shimano, but he's looking for his own teammate to follow into the final bends.
But at the moment he's crossing swords with Marcel Kittel there, and Goss won't have any of it. He's got that 4th wheel, and he's got his team in order now, including last year's winner Simon Gerrans is up there too. And these boys are trying to steer Gossi, as the Aussies call him, towards that finishing line. He has won here before, but he wasn't riding on an Australian team when he did that.
Well, it's now Orica Green Edge in control. They've got a lap and a half to control this main field. They keep looking back. They're doing currently about 54 kilometres an hour, but when they come into the finishing straight, Phil, we'll be looking at 65.
Lap 29, the bell should be ringing as they head out towards the goal. The pace being made by the South African on centre left as we look now, Daryl Impey. But the boys from all the teams are trying to get the sprinters into position now. This is the most dangerous moment of any world-class cycle race, as the domestiques, as we call them, try to move their sprinters, and it's a very tight left-hand bend, that.
The Belgian team, Lotto Belisol, is Adam Hansen on the front, grimacing now. They're looking back to keep this pace as high as possible. Everyone else in the wings, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4th position there is Greg Henderson. 5th position is Andre Greipel. But here's a big move now coming, and it's Robbie Hunter of South Africa trying to get Tyler Farah up to the front end of this pack.
Yes, the multicoloured jersey. He wears the South African flag on his jersey as national road racing champion. He's so easy to spot out. These are the riders. This is Adam Hansen here now. These are the riders who are trying to get Andre Greipel into position. If you can spot Andre Greipel, his number is 21. 1 lap to go. 1.7 kilometres to the finish. A tad over 1 mile to the finish. There's an awful lot of riders taking risks around these left-hand bends now. The black jerseys of Sky are trying to move into position. The Lotto Belisol team have done it all right so far. They've got control of the peloton. They've pushed the Orica Green Edge away from it. And Andre Greipel, who's won this race twice already, is the 5th man in the line of those jerseys. He is in a perfect position, but he's picked up a shadow. He's got Matthew Goss on his left shoulder. Gossi squeezing through an impossible gap. He will not let the wheel go there of Andre Greipel. The tall black figure of Matthew Heyman here. He's trying to steer his sprinters now right up to where they want them. And still the pace being set at the moment by Jürgen Roelands, the man on the front who had a terrible crash here last year. It ruined his season. Still you've got to give it to the Lotto Belisol team. But the blue jerseys there of Tyler Farah trying to get on terms. And Matthew Goss is puffing and blowing. 4th wheel here. He's on the back wheel of the Gorilla as he sits there now. And there's a little break because of the pure speed, and there's the final lead out, and look at the set jaw of Greipel as they swing down towards the line. Goss has got his back wheel, and that's what he wanted here, and right on the back wheel is Boy Van Poppel as well. But Greipel goes and Goss chases him, and is Goss going to get it on the line? And the answer is no. Andre Greipel has started again in the Santos Tour Down Under. The 3rd time he has won this opening race, and the team really had all control for him. They went so fast at the front, and that was largely by Jürgen Roelands, really turning the screw down. They opened up a gap on the field. Riders below the picture there realised it was already over for them. They just missed the boat, and the winner was going to come from those 7 riders. As the lead-out men were swinging off, it became a shoulder-to-shoulder battle. Greipel goes. Goss, who had a real rough ride those last couple of laps to keep in position, didn't have the legs left to get up to the Gorilla on the line. Greipel is the man. He's opened his account here. First win of the year for him. He's done it twice before in this event. He does, by the way, hold number 2 in the number of stage wins in the Santos Tour Down Under. He's got 11. And that will all start on Tuesday with stage 1. As we move out of Prospect and up to a first-time stage finish in the town of Lobethal. Nothing's very far away from Adelaide. The riders always come home every night to stay in the same hotel. There's the blur of a man who's just crossed the line at approximately 70 kilometers an hour.
We tried to do the same like last year, and I think we proved it again that we have horsepower in our team, and it was like we tried it in training in the last days, and yeah, we stick to our plan, and with everyone in our team did his job, and yeah, it was a nice victory.
It certainly was. Andre Greipel going back-to-back with his win here a year ago, just getting the better of Matthew Goss, and Greg Henderson, the lead-out man for Greipel, even holding on to third place himself, while Holland's Boy van Poppel in fourth and Eddie Boysenhagen, the champion Norway, there in fifth. Well, the crowd dwindling now, but the official police figure 109,000 spectators have watched this opening round of the Santos Tour Down Under, and Andre Greipel, a familiar winner and a very popular one here from Germany. Well, that wraps it up for today's opening criterion. Be sure to tune in for stage 1 on Tuesday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. It's the Epic Cycle